Welcome to Career Tools. This week, your annual career checkup, part 3. The questions this class answers are, what is a career checkup? Why would I want to do a career checkup? And how often should I do a career checkup?
When it comes to communication, it's easy to think of yourself as good enough. After all, you've been doing it your entire life and it's gotten you this far. But the way that human beings build trust and in turn relationships is by constantly communicating with one another. So while you are good in your own right, there's no harm in a little bit of improvement. Join us at one of our Effective Communicator conferences to take your communication skills to the next level. Register today at manager-tools.com/training.
Okay, next up, join a professional organization. So let's think about this. What kind of people join professional organizations? So a professional organization is the Chartered Institute of Surveyors or the Association of Operations Professionals, something like that. So the people who join those organizations are people who want to learn, grow, and further their career. In other words, if you're listening to this, people just like you.
People like you.
Those are the people who want to know more about what they're doing and to be better at it. The best place to learn about industry developments is from an industry group because, the Chartered Institute of Surveyors has somebody somewhere whose job it is to watch about news about surveyors. They look for what's coming up in governmental law, in regional law. They look at stats. The Bureau of Labour Statistics produces stats every month about the number of people in certain jobs. Those people in the Chartered Institute of Surveyors look at those stats, they look at the line that says surveyors, and they make an analysis, and they share it with all of the members. They share news about people's stories, people's careers. How did this person become this? Those things are usually in newsletters or magazines of professional organizations. How is this company dealing with this problem? Those kind of things are in professional organizations. The best way to learn about what's going on in companies around you that have similar people is to join a professional organization in your area. I was talking to someone yesterday he's an operations professional in Cleveland, and so I googled Cleveland Operational Professional Group. And there is one, and they have monthly education sessions, and this person is looking for a job. Go to the education session and find out all these people have jobs, so probably most of them have jobs, right? And they know about jobs in their company, and they probably have friends who have the same job and know about jobs in their company. It's a really good way to increase your network, but it's also a really good way of increasing your education and finding out more about what's going on in your professional industry. So you can do either there's industry groups and profession groups. There is also the combination, so you can do any or all of those.
Also, are you in need of a mentor? Because a professional organization is the ideal place to find a mentor. If your role requires continuing education, then your professional organization will be able to let you know which courses count, right? For example, PMP. Oftentimes people come to Manager Tools and say, do you offer PMP credits? If you go to their professional organization, they'll be able to tell you which courses you can attend through which organizations to get the credits that you need to count towards that. If you work from home, a professional organization is a great place to meet people who you could work with to form a smaller group that provides you with the benefits of being in the office, right? You don't have that opportunity to talk to or spend time with other professionals in a face-to-face setting if you work from home.
Maybe there's 5 of you who work from home and you could meet once a week and just work from Starbucks together or work from a co-working space. Or maybe even you do a Skype check-in in the morning. Hey, everybody at their desk, what are you going to try and achieve today? It's a really good way of finding like-minded people.
That's the thing. There are just so many benefits to professional organizations. It would be impossible for us to list all of them. And there's an organization for everybody. As Wendy said, you just have to search it. It's on the internet. No matter how niche your profession or industry is, there's an organization for it. Many of them have online components as well as in-person components. That is to say, no matter how busy you are, how much you travel, you're able to keep in touch because they have some sort of online chat room or forum to keep in touch. And there are always more than one. If you don't like the first one, just join a different one instead. If you don't want to join an organization specific to your profession or to your industry, then join a group with a different focus, but has professionals that still meet and communicate, like Toastmasters or the Rotary, a bunch of like-minded professionals meeting together to discuss like-minded things.
That thing about there's always another one. A couple of weeks ago on 3 Random Things. So if you're a licensee, you get an email once a week from me. You get one from Mark and one from me. And in mine, I do 3 random things, which are 3 links on the internet that I think are interesting. And I do a little bit of commentary about them. And one of them a couple of weeks ago was the 75 best online professional groups for, I want to say it was builders.
Yeah, I think it was home builders, something like that.
Home builders, right? It was something like that. I think it was builders of homes. And my comment was, not that I think the vast majority of people who are listening are home builders and would therefore find these groups useful. My commentary was, how many do there have to be that there are the 75 best in the online space for that specific profession? There are 75 of the best to choose from, which just blew my mind. And I actually did some research. I thought, maybe it's an exception. And then I looked at a bunch of others and it's not an exception. There are hundreds of these groups in every niche that you can think of. So don't think, oh, I went to a Toastmasters meeting once. They're all crazy. I'm not going again. Fine, don't go again, or go to a different Toastmasters group who meet at a different time. They're all different and they're all the same. But, if you go to an industry group and you think these people aren't my people, find another one. There will be one.
Your people are there.
Indeed. So we did current situation, we did enhance your value, and we did invest in your future, and now we're doing invest in your network.
Mm-hmm. And one way to start that is by volunteering internally and externally. Now, a lot of people's first thoughts when we say volunteer for more work is, I have enough work already, thank you. Why would I want to volunteer for more of that work? And let us count the reasons. So first, the more work you have, the more you can do. This is an updated version of Ask a Busy Person and the manifestation of Parkinson's Law. Work expands to fit the time available, with Horstman's corollary, work contracts to fill in the time we give it. Having more work to do forces you to concentrate on the priorities and drop the busy work we all have to do when there is time to be filled.
I love tidying up my folders. It makes me feel productive. I tidy them up, I rename them, I make sure that the capitals are right. It's absolutely busy work that makes me feel good because I can see changes and contributes nothing to my priorities. The more work I have, the less likely I am to be doing that work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Second, volunteering connects you with people you wouldn't normally interact with and do work you wouldn't normally do. So let's say your IT department is developing a new app for your customers. As someone who has regular contact with customers, you volunteer to work with them and contribute some of the testing, right? So you have an understanding of the customer, so you're going to help them make sure that this app works for the customer. So now you've got the opportunity to build a connection with a team that you might normally not work with, an opportunity to build some new knowledge about IT testing. When Paul joined our team and we started actually doing IT testing, he talks about smoke testing and bread boxes. And I have done interviewing for IT and for QA for a long time, but nobody had ever said anything about smoke tests or bread boxes. So I learned something new. It helps me because when he and I are communicating about something and he says smoke test, I know what he means. And if we're trying to decide something that's not huge and not small, but it's about the size of a bread box, I know that's the phrase he likes to use or the phrase that means something to him. So knowing just those 2 phrases from having done one piece of work with him was really helpful. It gives you the ability to influence the design in a way that will benefit your customers. So if you are customer facing and they are developing an app that is going to confuse the customers, or the customers are going to be angry at it, or it asks for information that they might not have at that point, you get to say that right now and not have to deal with the aftermath. How many times do people say, oh, IT implemented this thing and it doesn't work, or it doesn't, it's really confusing, or you have to do X before you do Y, which doesn't make sense, right? And you have something new to talk to your customers about, right? If you're a sales rep and you're going out to customers and they say, so what's new? You're like, oh, actually, I've been working with IT on this app. I can't show it you yet, but this is what it's going to do. And next time you have a problem with that app or anything else computer related, you have a friend in IT that you can talk to, which is incredibly useful. So, that volunteering may have taken you an hour a week for 4 weeks, but how many of us have wasted an hour a week looking at Facebook or the news? Or, you can read the Wall Street Journal and convince yourself that you're being productive. But if you're reading the sports pages, you're not. So an hour a week is not that much. And yet it brings you so much.
The residual value makes it worth it. Absolutely. And third, why we would never recommend overwork. Doing more is one of the requirements for raises and promotions. It's not popular, but if you want the organization to give you something, you have to give to the organization first. You have to do more. Invest in your relationship with the company in order for it to give you more. And volunteering to take more on, to do more, to help your company meet its objectives, to meet its goals, is a really good way to prove that you're ready to take more on. Do more to prove you can.
That's a good point, and we didn't include in here. If you're going to be promoted, you're going to have more work. Right? That's just the nature of promotion. Sure, the work changes, but it's not any less than you were doing before. It's more work. And so if you can do your job and volunteer for something, you are starting to prove that you can do more work. And so when it comes to promotion time and someone says, is he going to cope with the workload? Your manager is going to say, yes. And I know that because he does his own job. He helps with this and he helps with that and he volunteered for this.
Mm-hmm. He's absolutely capable of more.
And there are opportunities to volunteer outside of the organisation. So the professional organisation that you joined after our last section will have opportunities to volunteer. Like I said, I have done for Toastmasters since I've been a Toastmaster. I've done the officer roles in the club. There's officer roles who organise things. I have organised contests. I've organised education sessions. I've helped with all of those things. I've helped with events. I've done writing, I've done IT, I've done all sorts of things that have taught me skills that I now use at work. And they've taught me a lot about communicating with people who are in different places to me, right? It's really easy for me to communicate with people at Manager Tools because they're all relatively similar to me, apart from the fact they're American and Canadian. But we have a similar level of intellect, we have a similar level of experience, we have a similar outlook on life, all that kind of stuff. When I work with people in Toastmasters, I have to work with people who are very different to me. And that's a good learning skill too. And it might be that even if you volunteer internally, that you are very different, or the people that are in the IT department are very different to the people that you work with. And that's another valuable thing.
Absolutely. And one way to volunteer outside of your organization would be, for example, if you've got children, to coach them. Or rather, coach your children's teams. Schools and organizations for kids, such as the Boy Scouts, are always looking for volunteers. I know my sister, she is my nephew's hockey coach. She, for clarity, has never played hockey. She can skate. That's about the extent to her hockey skills. She also coaches my nephew's baseball team. She's played that recreationally. However, not a professional baseball player. You don't have to be an expert in anything to teach children. No offense to kids, love them. But if you've got a minimum amount of skills in the area, you're bound to be better than a 6-year-old at that same activity. So volunteer.
What a 6-year-old's really good at, being annoying. That's it.
That's the thing.
and believe me, I can be even more annoying than that.
Exactly. Now, why, you ask, would you volunteer to give up your precious time to teach fifth graders how to play baseball? Well, first, it's a great way to meet other professionals. The other parents to which those children you will be coaching have careers as well, and a wealth of knowledge about other companies. Even if none of the parents on your team know someone where you potentially may want to work in the future, they've also got friends who might. And this is just another step in increasing your network. Increasing your network increases your reach into other organizations, in other professionals exponentially.
It's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I think it's 6
I think it's
degrees.
6.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So if you haven't heard this, anybody in Hollywood, because Kevin Bacon has been in a lot of films, anyone in Hollywood is connected by no more than 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. So you start with Julia Roberts, and you say, okay, Julia Roberts was in a film with Richard Gere, which was called Pretty Woman. Okay, so that gets me one step. Now, Richard Gere was in a film with someone else. I know I'm run out of Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was in a film with somebody, and that somebody was in a film with Kevin Bacon, right? So you make the connections according to those different places. So there's a famous experiment where somebody did this. They had a bunch of letters, and they put addresses on all of the letters, and they gave them to random people that they knew. And the object was, they couldn't put it in the mail. They had to transfer it hand to hand or person to person. Each person had to transfer it to someone else they knew in order to get to the letter to its destination. And so what happened was, I would give the letter to Sarah. Sarah would give it to her sister. Her sister would give it to her hairdresser. Her hairdresser would give it to her accountant. Her accountant gave it to another parent at the school, and the parent at the school delivered the letter to where it was supposed to go. Every time you add someone to your network, you don't just add that person, you add all of their connections.
Yes.
And it doesn't take many connections. I want to say it was 6 because it matches the Kevin Bacon thing, but it might have been 5 or 7. It didn't take that many connections to get all of these letters delivered, because every time you add someone to your network, you add all of those people's friends too. If you know the parents from your kids' team, you don't just know those parents, you know all of their connections too. And if a soccer team has 11 people on it, and presumably some subs, so there's 13 parents. Most people have 2 parents, and some people have step parents as well. So there's at least 13 parents that you now know, and all of their connections. It's massive. And I don't know how long it takes to teach kids baseball, like 4 hours a week maybe. And yet you've got this huge network.
That's the thing. I think 4 hours might be an exaggeration. It doesn't take that much time. That, and it's a really good way to learn and practice new skills. As a manager, you need to be able to instruct, to motivate, to coordinate, to manage projects, etc. The list goes on. Now, while teaching children isn't the same as working with adults, it does give you a chance and opportunity to practice those skills in, at the risk of sounding mean, a lower risk environment.
Yes, for sure.
That is to say, when your entire addiction to food, clothing, and shelter, that is your salary, isn't depending on it. You're volunteering and you're working with kids. They're super forgiving. It's kind of like organizing the annual picnic. It works in the same kind of way. It's the same skills that organizing a customer event would call into focus. And managing a team's finances for your children's soccer team is a lot like managing a budget at work. It gives you insight into activities, doing roles, engaging in behaviors that, whether or not you do them on a daily basis, you will get more practice doing them in an environment or a situation where not all of it is the end of the world if you make a mistake.
Right. And the most common action at work the thing we do all day, every day, is communication.
Absolutely.
You do not go into work. There is no job which doesn't require communication. Even if you work with trees need to be hugged. The best thing about this skill is you can practice it anywhere there are people. And a soccer team is full of people. Those people might be small people, but believe me, you can tell the disc profile of small people as easily as you can tell the disc profile of adults. Easily. When you've done this analysis, when you did the first part and you looked at your current situation and you thought about what do I need to do to get to the future, if there's skills that you need to get to the next level, ask yourself if there's a way to get them outside of work by volunteering. The other thing I always say about Toastmasters is a Toastmasters meeting is a place to practice. You don't go to Toastmasters because you're really good at presenting or really good at giving a speech. You go because you want to practice giving a speech.
Yes.
And you want to practice, there's a piece that's called Table Topics where somebody asks you a question and you just talk. You have to talk about the topic. It's not like
yes,
you just do words,
just chat.
But there is a point there. But, that we always say that's a chance to practice. When your boss comes up to you and says, okay, give me a status on X. If you've practiced table topics, you've practiced having a question, answering it in 2 minutes, making sense, not saying and ah too much, because you've practiced that. The Toastmasters isn't a place where you go and you're perfect. It's a place where you go and you practice. And this is the same with anything, with any volunteering thing. As you said, there is low risk. If I screwed up a speech, I was actually at a speech contest once, and the lady she did about 5 lines, and then she blanked, and then she walked off the stage. And nothing happened, right? I mean, everybody was incredibly sympathetic and worried for her and concerned and all of those things. But she didn't lose her job over it because her job wasn't at stake. You can really screw up in some of these volunteer places. You can forget things. You can get things wrong. And it's not as bad, as you pointed out, as if you were at work.
That's absolutely true. The next piece or the next idea, thing you could put in place is be a mentor or get a mentor. Now, the traditional method of teaching in medical school is known as see one, do one, teach one. A would-be doctor watches an experienced doctor do the procedure first, then they replicate or do that same procedure with that colleague watching them do it. But the most important step, or almost the one in which they learn the most, is the teach one step of it. It's really in trying to teach someone a process or a procedure that we find out where the gaps in our own knowledge exist. If you've ever taught someone anything, you'll have heard this question, potentially more times than you wanted to. Why do you do it that way? And if you've been asked that question, you've also probably experienced the moment of doubt that comes after someone asks you that. Oh, that's a good question. Why do I do it that way? Is there a good reason that I do it that way? Or is it just I do it that way because that's the way I've always done it? We can learn a lot from those types of questions. Those are the types of questions that, without being asked it by someone else, we're rarely going to ask ourselves. Right? We do it the way we do it, usually because we've done it so many times one way, it makes it the easiest way for us to do it. And there's always more than one way to skin a cat. There are also different ways of looking at and examining how we do things, that there may potentially be a better one. However, until we ask ourselves the questions, we don't know necessarily where those knowledge gaps exist.
Yeah, it's amazing how difficult. A lot of the time we say, oh, I just do it by gut, or I just know. And actually, when you have to teach someone, you have to tell them how you just know. And it's actually quite difficult, usually. One of our number, I won't tell you who because it may not come to pass, but someone in our team is writing a podcast and and asked for tips. And I said, okay, so you want 1,200 words for one podcast. And that's 4 headlines and 3 paragraphs. And she said, how do you know? I was like, I just know. And I just know because I have written 400 and something podcasts, and I know exactly how long, if I have 6 pages, it takes us 30 minutes to record it, and the finished podcast is 26 minutes. And I know that. And at some point, I knew it rationally. I knew it in my head, right? I knew it explicitly. But I kind of internalized it, and now I don't worry about it. I just look at it and I go, okay, I've got an outline with 4 outlines and 3 paragraphs, so I'm good. But it's in telling someone else that I had to go back and say, okay, how did I get to that? How do I know that? And I have to say it explicitly, and it's the only way that it's one of the few ways that you can get something out of your head or out of your gut to explain what the problem is. The other thing about being a mentor is it gives you the opportunity to teach all the so-called soft skills. So things like relationships and communication are really hard. So from the big picture of how you think about your career, right? Because if you have a mentor, they'll be like, so how did you get to where you got to, and how did that happen? That's a big picture question. But there's small things like exactly how you get someone on side in a meeting, right? How do you change a meeting around when there's tension, or when you've given an idea and somebody's gone, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. What do you do next? Right? Those are things that a mentor can tell you. And those are all skills that you've learned that are describable and teachable. Anything that you've learned to do is describable and teachable. Anything that you didn't do as a baby is something you learned how to do. You learn how to tie your shoes, you learn how to walk, you learn how to disarm people in meetings. And we know it's teachable because, things like learning to walk, you think, okay, maybe that's not teachable or describable. But people who have accidents and have to be taught how to walk again, someone is teaching them how to walk, right?
There's a teacher.
There is a teacher. Somebody is saying, this is what you have to do. So all of those things, even if you think they're gut or they're in your head and you just know, those things are describable and teachable. And finding someone to teach them to enhances your understanding of them, and it gives you an ally, right? It gives you someone who you have done favors to. And often that person is several layers down below you in the organization or in another organization, right? It gives you more reach across the organization because you're picking someone who is not immediately near you in the org chart.
Absolutely. And you don't have to be a seasoned professional to feel like you have all of it together to be a mentor, right? If you're on the second step, there are plenty of people that are on the first step who could probably benefit from the knowledge that you have. You engaged in some set of behaviors to get you off of the first step onto the second, and they would benefit from knowing those. If you've been in a company or in the workforce for a year, you certainly have more knowledge than interns or people coming directly out of university or college. You can mentor or help them learn skills. If you are an intern, again, in that position, there is still somebody behind you. The students the year below you are individuals that you yourself could mentor. You're an intern. You're not a professional, seasoned professional, and you still have more knowledge than other people. The benefits of having a mentor are numerous. We've got guidance on what kinds of mentors you might want to look for, how to prepare yourself to be mentored, how to find or seek a mentor, as well as guidance for mentoring other people. And at the end of this show notes, we will have listed, as well as on the podcast page, all of those associated podcasts on how to be or receive mentoring.
All right, this is the last one. Contact a headhunter. So a headhunter is a kind of recruiter, and a recruiter is somebody who helps companies find new employees. And headhunters know the market for your skills better than anyone else because their job is to find empty jobs and fill them with people who need those jobs. Even if you decided way back when we were talking about the current environment and what you want to do next, even if you decided I don't want to change jobs, you do want to be open to opportunities. And a relationship with a headhunter is a good way to connect with opportunities outside your network. So let's say you've been in your company 3 years and you still feel like you're learning, you're growing, you like what you're doing, you like your manager, it's a convenient place, the salary is fine, whatever. So you think, okay, I'm going to do another year and I'm going to join this professional organization and I'm going to do these 2 courses and that's my plan for the year. What open to opportunities means is if a recruiter called you and said, I have this other job and it is 50 times better in all of the aspects that you've just said that your job is okay at, would you take it? And the answer is, I may not take it, but I'm certainly willing in talking about it, right? I'd talk about it with someone if you're on 100, if you're on 10,000 a year and somebody offered you a job that was 50,000, would you take it? You'd certainly want to talk about it.
You'd want to think about it.
So open to opportunities means somebody tells you about those opportunities and you are open to talking about them. And recruiters are the people who are connected to all of those opportunities. And we talked about expanding your network. Knowing one person means that you know a lot more people, right? That knowing one person adds more than one person to your network. Headhunters generally have huge networks. If you look on LinkedIn and you see something that says Lion, Lion, and again, I can't remember what it stands for, but it basically means they will connect with anyone who connects with them. So if you ask that person for a connection, they will say yes. They are usually recruiters, and they usually have, I think LinkedIn stops counting at 1,000, but I know people who have 3, 4, 5,000 people connected to them on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And of course, like if they are connecting to anybody who will connect to them, they don't necessarily know those people. They don't have a really good relationship with those people. But that doesn't mean that they can't go into LinkedIn and go, okay, I need someone who works at Mars. And they find someone who's connected to them who works at Mars and who was interested enough to connect to them.
Exactly.
Right? So a headhunter is like supercharging that idea that adding one person to your network adds more than one person to your network.
A headhunter also, as well as boosting your network potential, a headhunter can give you that once a year check-in to help you understand the marketplace and the direction it's taking. As Wendy said, headhunters, their goal is to know a lot about the market. So you have at least one person in your network that knows the market, is keenly qualified to potentially let you know the direction that it's taking. And this may very well influence the plans that you make as part of the results of your self-analysis task.
Many of the people that we admire the most are the ones that set goals and achieve them. And many of us complain that we're not sure how it got to 2018 or 2019 or 2020 or May or June or July. Sarah and I got on this call this morning and we said good morning and so on. And I was late. And I said, how is it 9:30 already? Because I hadn't been paying attention. Well, I got up, I started doing things, I wasn't looking at the clock, and all of a sudden it was 9:30, and it was time for me to do that. And we let hours, we let days, we let weeks, we let months, we let years go by without doing anything about it. And we think, where did all that time go? I don't feel like I achieved anything, or I achieved something, but it wasn't what I wanted. So put the career checkup in your calendar, set it to repeat every year. And one good day to do this is Labor Day is coming up in the US. So that's a day when people don't go to work. So any of the federal or bank holidays is a good day to do this because it will remind you because it's a certain day. This is the day I do this. It's not like a random Friday, which is harder to remember. And you have more time. And even if you're doing, family stuff, you probably have over that weekend, you probably have an extra couple of hours that you can take to do this work.
Absolutely. And as far as the time it takes you, it's dependent. If you've been doing this in the past and this is just your check-in, it might only take you 30 minutes to decide, yep, I'm on track for the goals that I gave myself 6 months ago. Just keep on trucking. Now, it might also, on the flip side of that, could take you several days to do the research that you need to get everything in place, especially if it's your first time doing it. Now, the essential thing in all of this is just to start. If you don't set goals, it's impossible to achieve them. And if you reach for the moon and you miss, you might just end up with a handful of stars.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Wendy. Communication skills. It's one of those things that's really easy to overlook since we do it all the time. I mean, how bad can you be? You are literally practicing constantly. People seek help less often on communication unless they know that they're struggling. To attend one of our Effective Communicator conferences, you don't have to be struggling. We help individuals of all skill levels to enhance and better their communications with others. Communication matters. Getting better at it is something we could all invest in from time to time. Register today at manager-tools.com/training to join us at an upcoming event.
That's all for this week. We'll be back with new guidance next week.